MMORPG tier list of 2023. Real quick, we'll see um, based on what he's showing. Let me make this a little smaller so we can actually see. Yeah, even though it's like less of the screen. Like that. Yeah, that way we can kind of see it. So, real quick, Final Fantasy 14, I would put S tier. RuneScape, I'd put OSRS, but probably A tier or B tier. Because I think for what it does incredibly well. It just has garbage graphics. That's why it's not an S tier to me. Because it's like, can it be improved pretty obviously? Yeah. Final Fantasy 14, I can't think of anything that really could be improved on it. Of course, graphics could always be improved, but it's not anywhere near to like OSRS level. World of Warcraft, I think would probably be an A right now, or maybe even B. I'm not sure. I have to wait for more things to come out before I say it. New World, I think, is a B. Guild Wars 2 is probably an A. Just because Guild Wars 2 has way more content than New World right now. Though I do prefer New World's combat. Albion Online, I think if you're into that kind of game, it's probably an S tier. Lost Ark, I would say, is either A or B. Is this Arcade? I'm not sure what this is, but it's not even out, so I don't know why that would be on there. Alright, let's take a look now. Make that back again.
Everyone.
Volume up. Alright, and this is, of course, by TheLazyPeon. Let's take a look.
Everyone loves a good tier list, especially the
True.
MMO community, because when you get a bunch of nerds
Everyone likes a tier list, not just the MMO. I think the ones who like it most are gacha players.
together, all with different tastes and opinions, the results of such a tier list can spark heated debates in the comments, which is of course fuel for the YouTube algorithm. In 2022 I made my first MMO tier list, which many agreed with, whilst others questioned my sanity. This year we're taking a different approach. A few weeks ago I put together a poll and got my YouTube community to vote on which tier each MMO should end up in. The first community voted MMO tier list. We got over 5,000 responses in total, and in this video I'll share with you the results of this tier list, as well as give you my own personal updated MMO tier list at the end of this video. But first, sponsor. V Rising is a vampire survival sandbox game set in a dark fantasy open world.
This is the first video I've seen with a V Rising sponsor.
Where you take on the role of a freshly awakened vampire after centuries of slumber and return to a world that's forgotten you.
It's a fun game.
V Rising was one of my favourite releases of 2022, and I couldn't stop playing it when I made my first impressions video for the game at launch, with me sinking over 55 hours into it within 5 days. The thing I loved the most about V Rising is the sense of progression you get from playing it. Every time you defeat a boss, you unlock new blueprints and abilities.
Because you gotta remember, LazyPeon doesn't... I mean, he has a job, but his job is playing games, so it's like 55 hours for 5 days is like 5 hours a day almost. Which really isn't a lot for like someone who games a lot. Maybe it's a lot for him though. I'm not sure.
To help you increase your gear score to take on new challenges, and it was also super fun to create my very own gothic mansion filled with minions and servants. If you already own V Rising, the game has a massive free expansion set to release this year. The update includes a new biome to explore multiple castle floors, tons of new bosses and enemy types, new weapons, an additional spell school, and...
The only thing I had an issue with V Rising was that the starting out of it's actually pretty slow. Like, I didn't really like it. But once it like got going with like you leveling up, getting more abilities and stuff like that, it really picked up and got a lot of fun. But I think the beginning of V Rising is kind of crap. After the tutorial.
The duel system, which will let you customize your spells. Click the link in the description below to check out V Rising now. The MMORPG tier list of 2023.
Whoa,
now this one is community voted, so don't shoot the messenger.
That is a huge
The results of this tier list is determined by over 5,000 community votes. So let's jump into it. Start with Aeon. This is a game that I've revisited recently, played Retail and Classic. I actually had a decent time with Aeon Classic, but...
I was so hyped about Aeon when it first came out. Like, I remember going to GameStop and picking it up, and like I had it pre-ordered and everything. And then I like played it for I think a month, if that, and I actually think I returned it. I think I played it for a few days and just returned it. Never mind. I'm pretty sure I returned it. Because I remember bringing it back. They're like, yeah, did you make an account? And I'm like, I did, but I said no, and they refunded my money. But yeah,
You guys have voted it to be F tier.
yeah.
So rest in peace, Aeon. Neverwinter, an MMO that still gets played to this day, and the overwhelming amount of
C-tier?
people voted it to be C tier, which
Yeah,
I
that
would
makes
agree
sense.
with. The
Yeah.
Secret World, an MMO that I haven't played for a long time or
D
heard anything about.
or
I'm not even
C?
sure if it's still going, but people voted this as F tier. Guild Wars
Ooh,
1, this is interesting
pretty
because
harsh.
22% of people voted it to be B tier.
That's actually a pretty fair thing, I think. Like, I really like Guild Wars 1, but it's not like a really good game.
But 22.6% of people voted it to be C tier, so that's where it's going to end up. But people really loved Guild Wars 1. New MMO from 2022, Embers Adrift, very niche
Look
MMO,
like crap.
and 39% of people voted this to be F tier.
Yeah, it did not look fun. Eve, C?
EVE Online, another extremely niche MMO, and an MMO that I've never actually covered on this channel. Interestingly enough, despite it being super niche, 25.5% of people voted EVE Online to be in the B tier.
That makes sense.
I really need to give
you're
EVE
into that
Online a
game.
chance. I always forget that this game exists, but it's been around since 2003, so it must be good if it's still going. Vindictus, the MMORPG that revolutionized action combat
D
around
or
the
C?
2010 era. And you guys have just put it in the F tier, so
Wow, I don't
what
agree
it is.
with that.
I don't agree with that, but
Yeah.
this is the tier list we're making. Lord of the Rings Online, another old MMO.
I'd have to put it either in F or D. Like, I think like Lord of the Rings is cool, of course, but I think the MMO is just boring.
That's still quite popular to this day. This game almost made the B tier with 27.2% people voting it for B tier, but 27.4% edged out and put it in the C tier.
You know what? It's probably because I haven't played it enough. Like, I played it like a little bit. I think their trial version, and it just was boring as hell. I didn't want to play anymore. But you know, that's a lot of MMO, so maybe I just didn't give it enough time.
Which I would probably agree with. It is quite old now. Lineage 2. This is an MMO that I wish I had the chance to play whilst it was relevant. Had epic, large-scale castle sieges and was quite ahead of its time. People voted this to be in the C tier. Next up is Rift,
That's
another
still
MMO
pretty impressive for a game that long ago for people to put it in C tier.
People deems to be middle of the pack and C tier. I'm not too sure if this game still has a healthy population.
That's funny. I would put Rift in D tier. Like, if you're going to put Aeon in F, I think Rift is not that much better.
Probably need to check in on it again sometime soon. Arcade, an MMO that people either loved or absolutely hated, but one thing that was undeniable is that Arcade brought a lot of innovation to the MMO genre, which is why I'm surprised to see that it overwhelmingly got voted to be a C tier MMO.
Why are you surprised? You just said you love it or hate it, which means it's probably going to hit the middle of the pack. To me, that just makes sense.
But a lot of people also voted it to be F tier and D tier. It was nowhere near reaching B or A tier. I'll do my own tier list at the end of this video, but I'd probably put it in B tier.
I was gonna say, I think LazyPeon, like, he's very nostalgic on it, so I was gonna say, I thought he put it in A, to be honest, based on, like, his previous comments on it.
Blade and Soul, another MMO that was ahead of its time in regards to its combat system.
That's true.
Really fun, balanced, equalized 1v1, 3v3 arena PvP. People voted this one in the C tier. Albion Online, this MMO is a bit of a success story, one of the most successful crowd-funded MMOs, and it's just gone from strength to strength.
If I had to guess, it'd be A.
Over the years, lots of positive updates.
But like I said earlier, like, if you're into this kind of games, like, it's an S tier.
And the game's got quite a big player base. People voted this to be a B tier MMO quite overwhelmingly. RuneScape 3, the least popular of the two different versions of RuneScape. This game's completely different to old school RuneScape, is more heavily monetized, but also has a lot of different features and different gameplay. People voted this to be a B tier MMO. B tier for RuneScape 3, I think I'd agree with that. Swords of Legends Online, Chinese MMO that people seem to enjoy for about 2 months once it released. And
the thing with Sword of Legends, at least for myself, is that the harder content wasn't done in a fun way. Like, it did not feel fun doing it. It was just, especially if you were a tank, which I was, like, it was just a pain in the ass.
And then I heard absolutely nothing about it since.
It was like spamming tank busters. Like, it was just so annoying.
People voted this to be F tier. Warhammer Online Return of Reckoning private server. The official servers of Warhammer Online got shut down years ago. The games existed on a private.
I tried to play the private server. It wouldn't play right. I was really disappointed. because I really like Warhammer.
server for many years since. And I've covered
I'd
it
put it at
recently,
C.
and people have voted it into the C tier.
I
Quite a
agree.
popular game. Every time I mention it, people talk very positively about it. We still haven't got anything for the D, A, or S tier yet. Adventure Quest 3D. Yeah, this
D?
one's overwhelmingly F tier. Quite basic
okay.
combat.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's D or F with Adventure
That
Quest.
it's mobile, PC, cross-platform. No surprise to me there. How about Skyforge? I absolutely hated this game when it
Me
first
too.
released.
I think, well, the thing is, I actually do like some things about Skyforge. That's why I'd probably put it in D and not in F.
Solid F tier. Riders of Icarus, tab target MMO where you basically go around collecting lots of different mounts.
Haven't played it, but I heard bad things about it. So.
Whilst it's not as bad as Skyforge, people have still voted it for the F tier. World of Warcraft Dragonflight, finally something for the A tier. This was overwhelmingly A tier at 32.8%, but 24.4% also voted it to be S tier. So an expansion that people seem to be reviewing very positive early on. World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King Classic. This is an interesting one because Wrath of the Lich King was the peak of WoW in terms of subscription numbers. So I expected this to have more positive votes than Dragonflight, but this wasn't the case. Wrath of the Lich King Classic was 30.7% voted for the A tier, and only 13.3% voted as S tier. It also had 28.9% people voting it for the B tier, so the community seems to prefer Dragonflight over Wrath Classic. Allods Online, I revisited this MMO last year and it still has a player base, but pretty much everyone that plays it is Eastern European. People voted this for the F tier. Tower of Fantasy, not really an MMORPG, but I wanted to include it.
What would I put Tower? I think C would be a fair thing, because there's some things that annoy me. Like, of course, the gacha stuff, but it's also, like, the time gating, like, was really freaking annoying. But take away really just those 2 points, and I think it was a really fun game.
Into this video anyway, as it is a shared world anime gacha MMO, people voted this for the F tier. Diablo Immortal.
Yeah, I think I understand why, but I just don't agree.
The most overwhelming F tier game on this list.
99%.
65.9% people voted this for the F tier, which doesn't surprise me at all.
Belongs there.
League of Angels 4. For me, this is the worst MMO I've ever played and covered on.
I saw his video on this. It looked like trash.
This channel. This is the most F tier game you can possibly get. It should probably even have its own tier, League of Angels tier. It's that bad. 48.4% of people voted Metin 2 for the F tier. Final Fantasy 11 Online. This MMO released all the way back in 2002.
You know what's interesting? Final Fantasy 11 was my first MMO that I've ever played. Which is weird because it's like, I didn't know what MMOs were. And I died and lost experience and uninstalled the game. Because I didn't know that was a thing, and I'm just like, what? I just lost my level. And I'm just like, oh my, this is horrible. Why am I playing this? This is stupid. Which is so funny because my sister's boyfriend bought it. She asked him to buy it for me, basically. And it cost like, I think it was like $45 plus like a subscription. I didn't even play it for like the full month. I felt bad, but I was just like, I hate that. I didn't really, because I was young, so to me I was like, dude, I just lost a level. Like, why am I playing this?
And I've never had the chance to play it, but I've heard a lot of cool stories about the game. Surprisingly, people voted this to be an F tier game, even though it's still played to this day. Maple Story, a nostalgic MMO for many people. This was almost voted into the B tier, but ultimately it ended up in C tier.
I think that makes sense. There's a lot of things I actually like about Maple Story. Like, I actually really like their classes, like the designs of them. I like some of the bosses. They're very, like, for a 2D thing, they've done a lot with what they could limit, with the limited access they have to it. Of course, there's a lot of things I hate about it, like it's super grindy, pay to win as hell. So, yeah.
By 0.2%. Project Gorgon, a super old school MMO that, if I remember correctly, was made by a team of a husband and a wife. Which is why I'm surprised that so many people have voted this in the C tier. Quite a niche MMO, maybe I should revisit it this year. Black Desert Online, quite a controversial MMO that evokes a lot of emotions from people. but without a doubt this game has the best action combat in the MMORPG genre, and it's not really close. In terms of popularity, BDO's like the 4th most popular MMO in the world, which is why I'm surprised that so many people have voted it to be B tier. Guild Wars 2, an MMO that many people absolutely love, super easy game to recommend.
Guild Wars 2, what did I say? I don't remember. It's whatever. I'd probably put it in A or B.
And you can jump in and jump out of Guild Wars 2 anytime you want, and you never feel like you're behind because the game focuses.
Like, personally, I would put it in like a D or C, just because some things I don't like about it, like the horizontal progression, I'm not a big fan of. Only because I'm the type of player, when it comes to some, like MMOs like that, where I like when the expansion comes out, like Warcraft's example of this, or even Final Fantasy. The expansion comes out, I get pretty decent gear, like maybe I don't get top of the line or anything like that, and then I go and beat older content. It's just fun for me. You can't do that in Guild Wars though.
So heavily.
And by beat, I mean like solo raids.
On horizontal progression, people overwhelmingly voted this to be an A tier MMO.
Really?
With a lot of votes also.
I mean, I did say A or B, but just a personal, I put it in like maybe a C.
For the S tier. PSO2 New Genesis. This is basically.
I'd say C, leaning towards D.
An updated version of Phantasy Star Online 2, modern graphics, better combat, and a bit of a redesign of the game. Don't really hear too many people talk about this MMO, so I was surprised to see it was voted as C tier. Mortal Online 2, a hardcore full.
Based on players, F, but based on the game, like a D or C.
Open world PvP sandbox MMO, quite a niche MMO. Not a lot of people seem to like these kind of games, and it was overwhelmingly voted as F tier. Undecember, a multiplayer ARPG cross-platform on PC and mobile that I covered recently.
I wasn't a big fan of this. I tried it and I thought some things were cool, but I don't know. Like, I played it for a few days and just uninstalled it.
Not really an MMORPG, but I wanted to include it anyway. People voted this for the F tier.
I agree.
Game's kind of similar to Diablo Immortal, but I'd say it's a little bit better. V Rising. This game isn't really an MMORPG.
That's a weird thing to have in there. I don't know why LazyPeon would add V Rising. But if I had to guess, it'd probably be like a B or C.
But I wanted to include it anyway because this was one of my favourite games of 2022. Super unique multiplayer top-down vampire survival game with bosses, and it's just come out with a massive new update. Despite not being an MMORPG, 25.7% of people voted V Rising in the B tier, with the 24.3% of people voting it in the A tier. Conqueror's Blade, another one for the F tier. Bless Unleashed, overwhelming.
Yeah, I never heard of. Well, I've heard of Conqueror's Blade, I just never played it. Bless Unleashed also
F tier. DC Universe Online. People still play this game, and I thought it was going to get voted in the C or D tier, but people voted it in the F tier.
That actually, yeah, I would have guessed the same, C or D.
No love for superheroes.
I think D would be more fair for it.
MMOs anymore. Dungeons and Dragons Online, another beloved old school MMORPG. No surprise to see this one also get voted to the C tier. 6 MMOs to go. This is where it gets interesting. Star Wars: The Old Republic. We don't have a lot of
D or C.
Sci-fi MMOs on this list, but Star Wars: The Old Republic is one of the most popular, with 33.6% of people voting it in the B tier. New World.
I guess I can see it, but it's like, personally, I would put it in like the C or D tier. I just got like really bored of it.
This is an interesting one as the game saw a lot of improvements in 2022.
Yeah, I'd put this as like A or B.
And following the Brimstone Sands expansion, the player base finally started to grow. I rated New World as a B tier MMO at the end of 2021, and I said I expected it to become an A tier MMO at the end of 2022, but based on community votes, 33.2% of people still vote New World as a B tier MMO.
I think that's
Old
fair.
School RuneScape, the most popular of the 2 RuneScape versions, as RuneScape 3 got voted
Probably
into the
an
B
S
tier,
tier,
it's no surprise that Old School RuneScape was overwhelmingly voted as an A tier MMO.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like going to be the only one that actually managed to hit S tier, but based on what we have left, I would say probably Final Fantasy 14 is S tier, Elder Scrolls probably B or C, and Lost Ark like a C or D.
Next up, Lost Ark. This one surprised me a lot. I was certain that people would vote this as an A tier MMO. This game popped off at release, and it has the best action combat of any isometric MMO out there.
While that is true, the end game is trash.
yet 30.2% of people voted it as a B tier MMO.
Yep.
I guess that has to do with the monetization and the botting issue that the game currently faces. Elder Scrolls Online, solid MMORPG, beloved IP. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the combat, but many people still play this game across.
My favorite thing about ASO is the amount of tier sets it has. Like, I was surprised when I played it and found how many there were, and I had a lot of fun like trying to collect the pieces. But like you said, like the combat just doesn't feel that good. And the PvP is just, which I at first liked, like I got tired of it very, very quickly. Because I ran into people who were like, we would fight them 3v1 and they'd kill all three of us and be still at max HP. I don't like games that are that imbalanced.
Across multiple platforms. I'm surprised to say that this game's been voted as a B tier MMO overwhelmingly, with 37.5% of people
fair.
voting it here. One MMO remaining, Final Fantasy XIV. If there's going to be an MMO to reach S tier, you would think it would be this one, as people who play this game are extremely passionate about it, and you can certainly see that in the...
Even objectively, I think it's an S tier game. Like, think about what is like really wrong with the game, and you'd be hard pressed to find anything like really bad about it, other than you don't like anime or Final Fantasy themed stuff, which is not really a criticism towards the game.
Community votes. 33% of people voted Final Fantasy XIV to be an S tier MMO, which is the highest amount of S tier votes that any game on this list got. 35.2% of people, however, voted it to be an A tier MMO, which means that once again in 2023, no S tier MMORPG exists.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's people like it should be an S tier. Just it is what it is. Like objectively, there's really not many bad things about it. I think the worst thing is probably the housing system. But other than that, like Final Fantasy has hit every box when it comes to a good MMO. Other than maybe, I would say maybe the combat's probably the only thing that like you can really criticize Final Fantasy 14 for not having like good combat. It is decent combat. I think it's not bad, but it's not like World of Warcraft. It's not. But then so is old school RuneScape has like shit combat too. So I don't know if that's a much of an argument.
Interestingly, no D tier MMO exists. But in terms of popularity, based on community votes, Final Fantasy XIV is the one that is reviewed the most positively, with World of Warcraft Dragonflight and Guild Wars 2 coming in second and third, I'd say. So there it is, the 2023 MMORPG tier list, as voted for by the MMO community with over 5,000 votes. I have to say I don't agree with the placement of all of these.
Yeah, but I think a majority, actually, they nailed it. At least in terms of like my personal opinions.
So now I'm going to make my own tier list and place them where I think they should be. So this would be my personal MMORPG.
Alright, let's see. A tier, Guild Wars 2, Dragonflight 14. The fact that you put Dragonflight above 14, that's not what I would agree with. Wrath, I think Wrath should go in S tier. Like, just to be fair. BDO, I would not put in A tier. To me, there's too many things wrong with BDO for it to be an A tier. Like, it's not like you can fix one thing and it becomes an S tier, which I think is what A tier is kind of for. Like, A tier should be, if you fix kind of this issue, your game becomes like way, way better. Not way better, but you know what I mean? Like, you're really messing up this one thing. Which is why I think Final Fantasy XIV kind of deserves to be an S tier. Because it's not like it really messed up the combat. It's just not as good as other games. But BDO, man, it's like Lost Ark, which he has on A tier as well. So I don't know. I would definitely disagree. I think Lost Ark and BDO at most should be B tier. V Rising, I think it has a shitty early game, so I don't think A is a good place for it. But I wouldn't complain too much there. Albion, like I said, I think actually should be an S tier. I don't think it does anything particularly wrong. Especially if you're into that kind of game, it's an S tier. Arcade, I'd probably put in D tier, just because if it was good, it wouldn't have died. Regardless of the monetization, because BDO also has bad monetization, still around. So I actually wouldn't agree there. Star Wars in a B tier. I don't know. Like, I just think Star Wars is really boring. Like, I think outside of the story elements, everything else about it is pretty boring. So that's why I put it like in a D or C. Eve Online, I don't know enough to put that anywhere. Okay, I'm not gonna go over everything, so I'll just stop there.
RPG tier list of 2023. Once again, nothing in the S tier, but I've moved a lot of games from F tier to D tier because I feel like a lot of the votes from the MMO community are quite emotional. You can't put a game like Aeon on the same level as League of Angels, for example, or Diablo
True.
Immortal.
I think Skyforge should be in D tier. I know they're like it does a lot of things wrong, but at the same time, I also thought the combat was actually really fun. So if they could fix like I would say 3 things, the game would actually be really, really good.
Also added a few more games to the A tier and changed the order of things. I think Arcade is a B tier MMO purely because the game's fundamentally broken due to the labour system. Lost Ark and Black Desert I've moved up to A tier purely because of the combat. I know the games aren't perfect and have their problems, but on combat alone, I think they deserve A tier.
If you're gonna base everything on just combat, then I guess. But like to base an MMO like on just its combat is kind of crazy. Like that's sorry, LazyPeon. I'm like totally disagreeing. Like, why are you playing an MMO if all you care about is the combat? It's just weird to me. I'm not saying the combat is not important. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying like it seems like that's all he's basing it on.
Tier. New World I moved up to A tier based on the improvements that the game's gone through and the fact that it's one of the few pure non-pay to win MMOs on this list. V Rising, even though it's not an MMO, I moved up to A tier because I just love this game. I also moved ESO and Albion up to A tier as well.
I mean, you didn't say why V Rising shouldn't be an S tier, which has been weird.
I think this would probably
Maybe because you thought you'd get backlash. I'm not sure. Like, what's wrong with V Rising in your eyes?
be my overall list. Maybe move a few things around, change the order of some things, but I think this is solid. So that's it for my 2023 MMORPG tier list. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this approach to tier lists, of doing one version where it's community voted, and then at the end, my own personal opinion type.
I actually think that's really cool.
I actually think this is a much better approach of doing it, so if you guys like it, we'll do the same thing in 2024. Hopefully, we get some new MMOs to add to this list throughout the year because...
Oh, I don't care if they add new MMOs. That's a lot of MMOs. I just wish the ones on here improve to where they can climb this ladder. Get up a tier. You know what I mean? Like, I'd way prefer that over new MMOs.
I'd love to see...
Because I actually really liked... I don't see it here anymore, but it's probably because it's like this or something. Where it's the... What the heck? Sword of Legends, I think it's called. Maybe that's what this is. I thought Sword of Legends, like just the leveling and stuff like that was just really fun. It wasn't until like I got into like the late or the end game where I'm just like, this is just hot garbage. Like, what the hell were they thinking? Like, it felt like they didn't not do any kind of test run with their harder tier content.
See a game reach the S tier. Final Fantasy XIV almost made it. Maybe next year. We'll see. Help us out with a like for the...
What don't you like about Final Fantasy XIV? Like, that means, like, even Guild Wars 2, like, how did you grade this? That you put Dragonflight with Guild Wars 2? I don't really agree with that. Or Final Fantasy XIV, because Dragonflight is an incomplete game right now. At least in my opinion. So, alright, well, that was an interesting video. Let's take a look at the comments real quick, just to see. And now we know the why community has never been done before. To be fair, though, I think a lot of it was like kind of spot on. And F concerns me. So is why they... Well, that's not true, because like that 30% could have been in D tier, which I think would also be somewhat okay. Because yes, it's pay to win as hell, but from what I've seen, the combat seems okay, like decent. And if you're into ARPGs and you just ignore the pay to win stuff, seems like a shit game still, but not an F tier game. Thank you for the video. Particulars, average viewer play procedure rather than using the most popular answer. To give, if there's an error, they go 40% of the view. In the F tier, 30% A tier, 30% S tier. It should be put into the F tier, even though 60% of the community, the majority, love it. So the average would give us more accurate result. That actually is not a bad thing there, where it's just like you get the average where it's like like he said, 30% put it in A tier, 30% put it in S tier, and then 40% in F tier. So that'd probably be an A tier or even a B tier. Let me focus on, yeah, like getting some kind of algorithm that will do that for him, so he's not having to do the math on like every single like one. Let's see, anything. Take a look. Congrats on the Go Tour. Made it to the A tier with the big timers or big hitters. The greatness of Guild Wars 1. Newer MMOs could learn for its systems. Name use skill system, hero system. Absolutely. I would 100% agree there. Skill system, I don't really care too much about. Like, it was good, but I think the hero system was just way ahead of its time. And I wish more MMOs did it. Like Final Fantasy. Like Final Fantasy, the fact that they went away from the squad system and did like the trust system instead still kind of like irks me. Because I love the squadron system in Final Fantasy. But yeah, that was the tier lists for with LazyPeon. And I would say I do agree with a lot of it. Some things I definitely don't agree with, like especially with his. The fact that you put BDO at the same level as Final Fantasy 14 is, to me, like, I don't know. I guess if you're only interested in the combat in your MMOs, then I would say yes. But even then, like, why is RuneScape up there? That doesn't make sense. But either way, interesting take to get the community to get involved in that. That's really cool.